Parm Saran is a licensed registered nurse with nearly 30 years of experience. She specializes in mental health and is an advocate for removing the stigma around mental illness. She is a certified therapist, coach, and motivational speaker. She is a holistic nursepreneur helping thousands with her online program, Pain to Purpose. She believes in creating your own destiny and empowering yourself, helping people live life by design and not by default. She has a YouTube channel where she encourages people to choose faith over fear and speak out against bullying, stigma, abuse, and violence. Her best-selling book, Own Your Life, Create As You Go, has inspired many to live life to its fullest potential. Parm is a wife and a mother, and her everyday message, especially to women, is do it. Because your kids deserve a mother they can brag about. She believes you can change your story to change your life and inspires people to do the same. Parm's motive is to help people find their inner power and be the person they are meant to be. Please welcome a voice of change, Parm Saran, and get ready for her show, Grow Your Greatness.
Hello everyone, good morning, good evening, Sat Shri Akal, Namaste. I hope you're doing great wherever you are. Welcome to my channel, Grow Your Greatness. Today we have a very special guest who is an actress. She is born, brought up in UK, living in Canada, mother of 4. Please welcome Harjeet, and she will be talking about her mental health journey, sharing her wisdom with us. So, welcome Harjeet, welcome to Grow Your Greatness, and I'm really happy that you are here today to talk to us.
Well, hello Palm, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure being here on your channel.
What would you say about your journey in mental health?
To speak about mental health, my journey with mental health actually started in 2009, I would have to say, at the end of 2009. I was 27 at the time, not giving away my age, but I just did. So I was 27 at the time. I was actually going through a separation with my husband of like 6.5 years at the time. I had 2 children with him, and my children were quite small. So I had a steady job at the time as well. Going through all of that, my emotions got the better of me. My attendance at work deteriorated, my performance deteriorated. I wasn't fully present. Physically, I was present. Mentally, I was very absent. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I thought it was pretty normal, you know?
Yes.
So thinking that, I was feeling symptoms like having trouble breathing, go to the hospital. I was told there's nothing wrong with me. I was given an inhaler, sent home. Then I couldn't swallow anything. Throat was all swelled up. I couldn't swallow. And my mom and like my family thought that I was lying and that I could swallow. And I wasn't diagnosed with any mental illness at the time. Just almost like people thought I was pretending. Looking back now, I'm thinking it was probably like anxiety. I was having a panic attack from the overwhelming emotions.
Yes.
And talking to a million people, really my family and my ex-husband and doctors, and I was talking to so many people, but not one person was actually listening, you know. They were all reacting to me because of how I was presenting myself. At the time I was young, so I didn't really understand what was going on. I thought, I got a grasp on this. I know what's going on. Why is like nobody else understanding what's going on? So going through the separation with my ex, who was my partner at the time, I kind of had a breakdown because like I just said to you, I was talking, nobody was listening. I just, in my head, kind of recognized that talking is not solving this. Nobody's listening. I'm just going to stop talking. And I physically shut down. I shut down talking. And it was easy at the time because I didn't care. I'm the kind of person, I'm a non-conformist. I don't conform to society, society standards.
Those are the people who change the society, Harjeet.
Yeah. Why do you have to follow those standards if it doesn't suit you?
Exactly.
That's always been my understanding of it. And I always speak my mind too. So when I shut down, I decided I wasn't going to be talking. At first, it was a little tough, you know, my mom saying, open up, talk. And my husband said, like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And then it just became easier for me to not talk. And I was like signing to them, I need a pen and paper. I will write, but I'm not talking. And I stood my ground. at the time, it was easy to do because I stopped caring. The world was against me. That's how I felt. I didn't have as much empathy then as I do now, right? So it was a little easier for me to do then. And that was the start of my journey because after that happened, my mom said, if you don't start talking now, I'm going to call the ambulance. And I didn't start
Okay.
talking. She's from a different culture to me. She was born in India, raised an Indian. You know, her background is different. Her generation is different. Her
Mm-hmm.
mindset is different, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she didn't understand. So when the ambulance came, I remember they took my blood sugar levels and they were talking about how my blood sugar was really low. I heard them,
Okay.
could hear everything. I just not responding to anything.
Yeah.
So they had to lift me into a wheelchair and they took me to the local hospital and I was put in a room. I was put on all these drips, I guess, IVs.
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. They did your blood sugar levels and your blood sugar level was low, and that's why they took you to the hospital?
I'm guessing they didn't really communicate anything with me. They were communicating with my parents,
Okay.
mostly. I just heard them say that my blood sugar was low because I wasn't responding.
But you were conscious.
I was conscious and I could hear, right? When they
Okay.
said we're going to put you in this chair, I was cooperating,
That's
but I
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just was choosing not to talk. And it wasn't like I was being stubborn like a 2-year-old. It was more, I'm shut down. Like
Because no
words
one was
aren't coming.
understanding when you were talking, right? That's
Yeah,
what people do. And
yeah.
when you were going to the hospital with the breathing difficulty and unable to swallow, none of the doctors in emergency thought that you might have anxiety attack?
No,
Wow.
nothing was mentioned. Because generally my health is pretty good.
Right.
That never really crossed their mind.
Wow. Hmm.
So they,
This is so sad that this is what happens. That's how most of the time mental illnesses or say the mental health part gets so left behind. No one actually thinks about. People, I mean doctors and any healthcare system, so ready to do the test and do the diagnosis. No one even cares to think about your mental health.
yeah. You know, I also it can also be to the other extreme too, where they're quick to diagnose you
Of
without even
course.
doing any checks, without even talking to you. I mean, my personal experience with mental health is that everybody has experienced some kind of trauma in their life. I mean, a trauma
Of
could be
course.
something as small as I had to sleep in the cold for 2 nights. That could be a trauma for someone, and somebody else's trauma could be I was abused for 12 years. And one trauma
Exactly.
is not worse than the other. They're both bad to that person that experienced them, right? So
Yes.
I would never negate somebody's experience to say mine's worse. But I never compare it like that. But I do also find that because of these traumas that are unresolved, there's a bunch of emotions that
Right.
are burning inside of us. We learn to suppress them.
Yes. And that's
To
what you were doing when you were not talking.
yes,
That's
I
what
had
you learned to
tried.
suppress it.
I tried. It wasn't working. Nothing was working. Nobody was
Yeah.
understanding. No, and I still
You
don't get.
you got it, but no one else was getting it,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
what were you feeling inside, Harjeet, when you were going through all this? I know you said you had difficulty breathing and you're swallowing, and then you kind of stopped explaining things. What were you thinking in your head? Were you trying to sort things out for yourself? I know you said you were going through separation. Was that the main stress for you, or was like children was the main stress? What was going on in that at that time in your head?
I think it's a combination of the two because of the separation I was going through. It wasn't just I don't know if you've ever been through a separation or divorce, but it's not something that just happens in an instant. It's
Of
something that's
course.
boiling for a long time. You're going
Yes.
to try and keep your relationship together.
Yes.
Comes to the
You
point,
do every effort. Yeah.
yeah, you realize you can focus on what's in your control, and you've got to decide what's outside of my control. Can I manage to work with what's in my control and be content? And at a younger age, then there were so many things I know now that I didn't know then, right? But
Right.
that was one of the things. And then having my children so young, they were my life. I was so new to
Of
Canada.
course.
I didn't drive when I got married. So after I had my kids, they became my life. You know, I woke up and I was a mom. I went to sleep and I was a mom. And I was happy with that life, but I was also missing the love from my husband. I just wasn't sure what was going to happen with my kids because I had tried to work with my husband. I drafted a separation agreement saying that we would split the kids 50-50. This is how it's working. And he refused to sign it. And it just made me think, I don't know what to do. My parents, my family were very supportive, but I was empathetic enough to always think of my kids. My kids are in school, they've got friends. I'm not going to uproot them. I'm going to have to stay close to where my kids are. And then it just became about where am I going to live? And I was really just overwhelmed with all these thoughts by myself because nobody was working with the way I want to do things. You know, I'm very big on you can help a person, but don't help them the way that you would do it. Help them the way that they would do it because everybody's different and
they want it. Yes.
I was so lonely and it took me a lot of work to get out of bed every morning. And if you would look at my life, you would think, oh my God, that girl's got it all.
And so when the ambulance took you, did they take you to the hospital directly, to the general ward, or did they take you to where did they take you?
They took me to the general ward and that's where they were putting me on IVs. And they put me in a room and they shut the doors and they took my parents outside. So they were talking to my parents about my health and what's going on with me, but they never talked to me because I was fully present and awake. They could have talked in front of me, so I could have heard, but they chose to talk away from me. And I was conscious. I could hear everything. And I just thought, well, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with people making decisions on my health. Really.
Of course, you were an adult, right? It's not like you were a little girl.
So I pulled out the needles and I'm laughing because I can't imagine doing this now, but I know I did. Right?
But in that state of mind, that's what you thought was the best. You just get it out, right? Yeah.
So I pulled the needles out. I went into the hallway and I said I was looking for the washroom. As soon as they saw me, they didn't tell me really what was going on. I can't remember what happened after that. They took me back in the room. The thing I knew is that they had called the local hospital, the bigger hospital, and they had a patient carrier come in to transport me to the mental health ward. And I knew nothing about what was going on. I didn't know where I was going. I was in this van and I thought, this doesn't feel like an ambulance. I thought there were only ambulances that exist. This does not feel like an ambulance. And in my head, like now I'm getting to the point where I'm like having trust issues, right? Which is becoming paranoia. So in my head, I'm thinking like all these like little electric nodes they've got on me and they've got no electrical equipment in this thing. They're monitoring something else. Like I was so paranoid. I watched all these shows that are like conspiracy theory kind of shows. So that's all going through my head. You know, I'm so confused. And
because no one explained to you what's happening. No one explained to you where are they taking and why. And it's so natural to become a paranoid.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, when you're not informed of anything.
Yeah, and not one person really understood my dilemma. I'm a mother. Nobody really like thought about that. Nobody really thought about the emotional trauma that I was experiencing at that moment in time. My mom, she did say that my daughter's depressed. And I even thought that was just like making things up. I'm not depressed, Mom. I'm so happy. What are you talking about? But I probably was depressed, right?
This is how we hide depression.
Yeah.
We put up a face, right?
Yeah. I didn't get diagnosed with depression. I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that. And then I decided I was going to fight my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because the patient advocates come in. So this is where the sneaky part was for me, conspiracy that I personally experienced, is that I was in the hospital and they knew that I was going to fight my diagnosis. They were trying to get me to take my pills. I wasn't eating, so they got me to take my pills on an empty tummy. And I said, I don't want to take the pills until the diagnosis. So I was set. So I can't remember the exact days, but say I was set for Thursday to have my hearing. On Wednesday, the doctor came to me and said, I'm not here tomorrow. I'm not here tomorrow for the hearing. So they chose to release me rather than go through my hearing. They said that we're releasing you and we're going to call Children's Aid as well.
No way.
Yes. So what happened is I had my hearing the next day. The doctor wasn't there the day before. She never told me she wasn't going to be there. So another doctor came up to me and told me that we're releasing you to me at the time, it didn't really make sense. You're releasing me, that's great. I was excited. Okay, I wasn't thinking about, I had a hearing to actually disprove what they're saying. I was so strong then, I could have really just worked with that, and I didn't fight that. The second that Children's Aid was mentioned, I got released from hospital. It was 5 days before I was back in there again, because I went to Children's Aid. I couldn't sleep, and I wasn't given any advice to journal my thoughts, to just like write it out. It's 5 days, you know. So if you've ever experienced a sense of like impatience, you're waiting for something, but you got to wait 5 days.
Yes.
And it's something really like important to you. You're going to sleep, you're waking up, you just can't function, because without that Children's Aid meeting, I could not function. Every day was work. I don't have my kids. I'm waking up to go to this meeting. By the time I got to that meeting, I was a wreck again. I was just physically present, mentally absent. So I don't know how the meeting went, but I was acting all weird and and ended up back in the hospital. And that was, I don't remember what happened to me then, but somehow it's all very vague, right? Because
of course,
I had kind of disengaged from everything. But I ended up back in the hospital, and this time it was for 2-month period.
Wow. And did they put you on any medication at that time?
This time they put me on a form. So the 5 days I was with them at first, I talked about my kids and how losing my kids, the thought of not having my kids is just destroying me. And so I walked out of the doors that are locked. Patients can't go out of these doors. Somebody came in, I walked out of the doors. There's elevators, the elevators are locked. I couldn't go in the elevators. There's big windows. So I went and stood by the windows. I can't jump. You can't open these windows. I went and stood by the windows. And then, like, it caused a massive drama. The security were there, all the doctors, like I was going to kill myself or something. They were all acting like irrational. They said, just comply with us, you know. I said, no, but I want to see my kids. I wasn't in danger. I didn't have anything. Like, I want to see my kids. That's all. They said, okay, well, if you come with us, we'll let you see your kids. So then I went with them. They put me in a room and they sedated me. They didn't let me see my kids. And then that's when, like, I got discharged. That was that time. But then the 2 months that I was there, they put me on a form that I didn't have any decision-making rights. And my husband that I was separating from was given all my decision-making rights. Even though
way.
Physically present. Yes, babe.
And they knew that you were separating from him.
Yes, they did. They did.
See, that's where the system fails you, right?
Yeah, it did.
And no one asked you anything, how you were feeling. No one asked you what were you going through because of your children. No one asked you what you were going through because of the separation, or did you even trust that person whom they are making your SDM, the substitute decision maker? No one took your permission in your treatment. Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that heartbreaking?
Yeah. At the time, yes.
Wow. You're so brave, Harjeet. Honestly, you're so brave. You went through all this and came out. Kudos to you.
I look back, I've always believed in God, honestly.
Of course.
Right? I had a strong faith. I just wasn't relying on my faith to get through. I was relying on my own intellect. I see now everything that happened then. I mean, things could have happened differently if I made different choices, of course.
Of course. That's always there, right?
You know, they say, like, you pick your life before you live it, and God always has a plan. Looking back now, I know that I experienced that because I could. I'm not going to get broken from that. I'm going to live to tell the tale. I'm going to laugh about it. It's going to be an experience. And now I say to myself,
there is always a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's always the reason we go through why we go through. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to see the reason, and you've got to make it work for you. Yeah. If I'm thanking God for these experiences, the point for me.
That's the lesson. Yeah. So what did you think changed you while you were in the hospital for 2 months? Do you think you were treated as a person or as a diagnosis?
Definitely as a diagnosis. I personally felt like, I do feel sometimes like people are intimidated by my presence. Like, I'm a strong personality, especially when I'm passionate about something, you know?
You have a strong energy. That's what I felt when I met you. And I loved that. Because people tell me I do have a strong energy. So I think that's why we connected.
Yeah, well, I remember when we did meet, I could hear you talking about mental health as well. And I thought, well, I know that her and I are going to talk later about this. Yeah. I felt like a lot of people, staff, included. Not so much the patients, more the staff were intimidated by me.
Wow.
Because I feel it sometimes now today, right? I was with one of the patients. She was an elderly lady and she was struggling to put her shoes on and her door was open in a bedroom. So I went in and I helped her get her shoes. And I was wearing my jeans and a t-shirt, just dressed like normal. And she looked at me, she said, "Thank you, nurse." I started laughing. I said, "I'm not a nurse." I'm not a nurse. And then a nurse did come in and pushed me away, not physically pushed me away, but told me like I'm not allowed to talk to I'm not allowed to help the patients. And I just thought that was a bit horrible. This is an elderly woman. She needs some help. And she's so grateful for it. She was so bubbly and so uplifting. So I kind of did feel then that this is ridiculous.
Sorry to cut you out. I can understand from being a nurse, I can understand from nurse's perspective. If I was in that unit, client safety, patient safety is always the utmost important thing. And I would have been worried for your safety and that elderly woman's safety. That's why I would have asked you not to go to her, right? But I can understand from where you are coming to, because you were in your 100% full consciousness, you were trying to help the woman.
Yeah, so I guess at that point I got treated as like a diagnosis, right?
Yes.
And what you're saying makes absolute complete sense to me now, right? It wouldn't have.
Yes.
And if you can do that to me, that's fine. But there's people that you do that to, and really they're not going to be as strong as me, right?
And they can't speak up.
That.
Yeah.
And that's not really fair, because there are some innocent people that will go through these experiences and they don't have that mental capacity to handle it.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes when a broken person goes into the hospital, they become more broken. They don't come out as healed or as one. They get more broken because, one, the system fails them. Second, they feel the lack of compassion and kindness.
Yes.
And that's what makes them not to trust anyone anymore. When they are already feeling vulnerable, and then someone says something even a little bit, then they're going to feel it 100 times more.
Yes.
Because they're already vulnerable, right? And that system flaws, that needs to be changed. That needs to be amended, right? And so many clients, they don't always get the support they needed. They get the support that doctor or nurses think they needed, but not what clients or patients needed. Not from their perspective, right? That's where it just get all messed up. I want to hear from your perspective. What do you think are the flaws or things that needed to be changed in our healthcare system, especially in Canada, especially in mental health?
Okay, first of all, my thing about changes, I'll tell you what I think needs to be changed, but also with changes, I do think that it's important that when people have suggestions, they should connect with their local MPP. It's very important because I've experienced when I was married, there were some community issues. There wasn't a stop sign around the park area. There was a bit of litter. There were some things going on with the community. I wrote a letter to the MPP, put pen to paper. Everything got resolved in an instant. So I think that people often forget that we have the power to make the changes, right? The reason that the changes aren't happening, I mean, you can do these online petitions, whatever. It doesn't have as much power as putting pen to paper and sending it to the local MPP.
I so agree with you. With the petition, I remember I started one petition because one of my friends, husband and wife, both were in an accident and she died on the spot only because there was no left turn signal on that intersection. And I put the petition in to have the left turn signal on every major intersections, but that got nowhere. Now I know why. Because no one pays attention to unless you go stand right in front of at their door and tell them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had a different experience because I just wrote a letter and everything. I got a response. It was pen to paper that I did it. I didn't do it by email. I put it in snail mail. I still do believe, though, that if there is a petition, it might get overlooked because also MPPs aren't dealing with their own mail. They're not dealing with it. There's other people who are making decisions for them. It is important to try and set up a meeting with the politicians. And this is the thing, it's a lot of work. These people are busy, right? And just putting a stop sign up or a left turn signal at every intersection, it's a waste of time for them. They've got more pressing talks to do, pressing things to work on that are going to give them power, right? It's a power game. I think that they do care. They do care about the people, but they also care about the power. So when it comes to mental health, the changes with mental health that I would advocate for, first of all, I would say it's very important to have this person's emotions dealt with. So have a licensed therapist on board with the mental health therapists. Everything's just switched to drugs these days. You go to see a mental health and a psychiatrist, and that's it. How about we see a therapist? We can still be in the mental health ward. How about we see a therapist and a psychologist before you put us in touch with the mental health unit? Because it's possibly we're just going through a traumatic time in our life. It's possibly we've just got a bad diet going on. It's possibly we're not getting enough sleep. There could be so many other things that you just give us a mental health diagnosis when you've really got to get to the root of it. So therapists, because I have seen many therapists and they've been massive to my growth.
I should share this with you. I'm not sure if you have read my book, but when I wasn't feeling well, I went to see the psychiatrist. I didn't think at that time that I had depression, but I knew something was off. So I went to my family doctor, referred me to the psychiatrist, although I asked for a therapist. They referred me to the psychiatrist, and to the psychiatrist, I just started crying. I said, I need someone to talk to. And he was like, you have clinical depression. You need these pills. I said, I don't want to take pills. Can you put me in touch with a therapist? I need to speak to a counselor or a therapist. You take these tablets and then we'll talk about the therapist. I did not take a single pill, Harjeet. Being a nurse, I know how the pills work. And even at that time, I knew that I can come out of it without using pills, but only if I had someone to talk to. I had someone to listen to me, just to put it all out. And I did come out of depression without using pills, and I never went back to that psychiatrist because unfortunately, that's how the health system is working. You go, you get a diagnosis, you get labeled, and then you get pills. That's all. No one has time to talk to you. No one has time to listen to you.
I mean, being a bit controversial, it's like when it comes to power, it's about money too, right? So without drugs, if everybody was well and healthy, there wouldn't be drugs, right? There wouldn't be pills to take. So there wouldn't be any money made off of that. I mean, you got to respect an individual, right? But when there's a person who says, I don't want to put that in my body, I don't want to put that in my body, you know, and you're bypassing that. It's a bit like, well, you know what, like you're like really bypassing my boundaries. This is my body, decide what goes in it and what doesn't. You're telling me that I have to put that in because otherwise this is going to happen to me. My only saving grace is that I believe in God, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is my own opinion. I think that we're kind of born with empathy, but we lose it because
I totally agree.
But the empathy goes when they realize they have to fight for attention. They're not like their empathy is not being reciprocated. So then they become more selfish, like it's about me, it's about me.
Exactly. Yeah. Children learn what they see in the family, right? So that's how they learn. They don't learn what we tell them. They just learn what they see. And you're so right. We are all born with love, kindness, compassion, empathy. And those are the virtues. Those are the virtues that we are born with. And over time, we kind of lose them because we get so much interaction with the world around us, which isn't that.
Yes.
That's how we start losing it. And by the time we are adults, we don't even remember who we are anymore.
Yes. I refuse to forget who I was, where I came from. I'm the same person. I've just evolved. Right.
Of course, you have evolved. You have become so much wiser version of yourself, right? And how do you think you cope now if there is any stressful situation?
Really, honestly, that's a tough one because it's definitely what you say. It is coping because there's nothing you can do with the emotions that you're feeling except feel them, process them. I try my hardest to talk to God. I do. So I do like to, when I have moments where no one's around, I like to have like a physical talk with God, with the
That's
space.
Awesome.
You know,
That's
just like,
cool.
I like to journal too.
That's good. Journaling is really good.
Journaling is really helpful. I like to, if there's things that are clouding my brain, stuff like I see physical clutter, there's toys everywhere, I'm just not organized with what groceries we have. When it comes to things like that, I want to be productive. So it's not really about thinking about it. It's just like getting up and just doing it. But what I can't deal with when it's like somebody said something to me that hurt me and now it's affecting how I am parenting my children and it's in me because I'm not sure how to take it's hurt my feelings. It's somebody I care about, whatever, they hurt my feelings.
Mhm.
That's a little tougher because like journaling, talking to God, it's all good and it helps. But at the end of the day, what you said earlier, you just want to be heard, right? I know I need somebody to hear me, like a therapist,
Yes.
hear what I'm saying, and that's it. I can think about solutions myself because
Yeah.
you have to get to the point. Every problem has an answer. Nothing like I could say to you, I don't have enough time to do this. It's not true because I have lots of time. It's just, is that a priority for my time?
We all have 24 hours. It's just the priority.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
like what's important to you.
Yeah.
There is an answer to every problem, right?
Yes,
Even if
there is.
even if it's out of your control,
Yes.
there is answers in how you handle situations
Yeah.
to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And you know how they say this, life is 1% the problem and 99% how we respond to it, right?
oh yeah,
And what I always feel like, if you're thinking from a solution perspective, you will find a solution. But if you get stuck on a problem, then you're going to attract more problems. Then you're never going to get out of it, right? So that's
yeah.
that's the strategy. Yeah.
And there's so much pressure online. I don't know if you see it too. To think positive, to manifest, you've got to think positive. You've got to feel like you have it. Well, okay, yeah, that's true. I get that. But what about when you're having a bad day? You're just trying to say dismiss everything you feel all of a sudden and just kind of just put that energy out into the air that you're fine. But then
We can't dismiss it. This is how I take it. We can't dismiss. If we're dismissing it, that means we are suppressing it, and suppressed emotions are gonna come out at some point in a really uglier way. So there's
Yes.
no point of suppressing it, because I think if you can feel it, you can heal it.
yes,
So you have to feel it in order for it to heal.
yes.
And that means understanding it, what it is, and then feeling it, and then focusing on the solution part, and then letting it go.
Yes.
That letting go part is the hardest part, actually, for most people.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's insightful. I get that too, because I do find a lot of people, they're revenge seekers.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
did me wrong.
That's not letting go, right? That's the not letting go part. And then we forget that revenge means whatever they did, that's their karma, but
Yeah.
you are carrying it with you.
Yeah.
That means you're just hurting yourself. I listened to this Indian mystic, and he says that being angry is like having hot coals in your hands and expecting someone else to burn.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're not going to burn. The hot coal is in your hand. You're going to burn yourself.
Yes.
So that's why it's important to just understand what you're going through, understand the feeling, understand the emotion, accept it, and then let it go.
Yeah. But also on the other end of it, the people that have got to that point where they can deal with their anger and their negative emotions in a wise way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not as easy. I also find sometimes if I'm confronted, I hate confrontations, right?
Me too.
It's hard to take the time to think about my response and understand where it's coming from and be wise about it. I use the right word, say, because I feel so rushed. I feel so like this is not remembering
Yes.
what you said.
Remembering, yes.
It's a perfect example. Remembering that I'm not the kind of person that feels this anger. I maybe have in the past, but I've changed and I've evolved. Like what you said is spot on. We got to put ourselves first in those situations.
Yeah, and we need to make a habit. So this is how we can help ourselves and others. If we make a habit, anytime someone says something, I don't have to respond immediately. I have to take a deep breath, take 3 seconds, pause, think through it, and then say.
Yeah.
There is this person on the internet. I follow him on Instagram and Facebook, Jefferson. He's a lawyer. Okay. He has so good tips and tricks. I'll send you his link. He's really good with those types of scenarios, and he helps how to respond. I mean, he's a lawyer. He knows how to argue.
Yeah.
So for confrontation part, he's really good. So maybe check him out.
Yeah, I will definitely.
Before I let you go, Harjeet, what is the one lesson you would like to share with the world about mental health from your personal experience?
You're not going through it alone. You just have to remember that, right? And I have God. God's my saving grace. But you got to find the right people to talk to. You got to find the people that are going to support you the way that you need supporting. So if you think that going to talk to your best friend, she's going to make you feel worse, because she's done that in the past. But it doesn't mean you don't love her. She's just not good
Yes.
at being your sounding board for this particular issue. Then don't
Yeah.
go to your best friend.
Yeah.
Go to
Yeah.
your sister. Go to a
Yeah.
therapist. You know, you don't have to feel guilty when you go to a therapist. And finding
No.
the right therapist is like finding gold. It's like striking
Yes.
gold.
Yeah.
Probably my advice is to have a licensed therapist, and don't be afraid to talk to the right people. Know the right people that you're talking to.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Arjit. And I'm sure it's going to inspire so many others to come out and speak about. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You take care, okay?
Okay. Bye.
Bye.